Hey guys, Tim Kotzman here with Matt Marlinsky, co-founder and CEO of the Manhattan Lab podcast studio.
Yes, sir.
Right here in Midtown Manhattan.
Yes, sir.
How did all this come to be, Matt?
Where would you like to start? No, it's a long journey of just like, I've been in production for more than 15 years. I got a degree in broadcasting. So like my first goal is to do traditional like television. My first job, my first like real broadcasting job out of the gate was I worked for the New York Mets. They have a channel in New York. Here in New York, they have a channel called SNY, which is like the local New York channel. They play all the Mets games on.
Okay.
I'm a huge Mets fan. Like that's like my thing. Like I love the Mets. 6 months into working in the industry, I go, oh, this ain't for me. And for a lot of reasons, just like the way the industry was, you saw where the future was going. It's a shitty industry with bad hours, with people that underpay you and they treat you like shit. And so like it's been a journey of like figure out what my thing was. And so I'm a lifelong creative. I was a musician, a full-time musician for a while. Like my actual original dream was to be like a famous rock band. Whoops, didn't happen.
What instruments were we talking?
Guitar. Yeah, so I was a guitar player. So I did a million bands, cover bands. I was a singer-songwriter at some point doing acoustic songs. So I played around New York City. I also had my own videography business. The big inflection point that's most important for us in terms of this conversation, how I got here, was actually COVID. So COVID hits and I had like a videography business where I was going around New York and recording people like product videos. I was recording a lot of musicians, listening to a lot of my friends, like live shows, recordings, all that stuff. And then COVID hit to go, shit, well, we got to change everything. Remember that when COVID hit, everything went online, obviously. Mm-hmm. So most of my work was editing. But when that hit, speaking to you, a finance guy, you remember when like COVID hit and like the stimulus checks hits and like the PPP loans and all this shit. At the time, like early 30s, I'm 36 now, like I was in my early 30s. I've had a job since I was 14. I'm like an artist creative type. I had no idea how money works. As embarrassing as that sounds, I know nothing. And worse is like I'm a creative artist type, which means most of the people I'm around think money's awful, it's the root of all evil, capitalism's terrible, and they're, that whole thing. So I basically went on a journey. It's like, I want to understand money. So you start understanding how the stock market works, the Fed. And at the time of 2020, that leads you to the contemporary that is Bitcoin and crypto. All right. So Bitcoin's very confusing when you first start to learn. It's like, what the fuck is this? And just through like my, exploratory sort of ways on YouTube and everything, I found Pomp's content. And so he made a video in like early summer 2020, which is like, why is Bitcoin important? It's funny if you watch that video too, because like he's on his webcam, like at his apartment, like Polina's walking by in the background, and like he's just like recording for an hour. But like that hour, he just nails exactly Bitcoin. And like it's like the light switch went off. Mm-hmm. Now that was just like me just learning just to learn. The inflection point happened again. The second point was when around late September, early October of 2020, I was following him and I was sitting on Twitter and I just saw that like he tweeted out, I'm looking for an editor. And I just saw in the first 5 minutes, I just emailed. And I said, fuck it, and emailed. So it's one of those moments in life where you just go, fuck it. Mm-hmm. Right? And like, if it wasn't those scenarios, like there was a lot of things that led to that scenario, like I probably wouldn't have even looked at it. There was a time where I was like, nah, I'm doing my own thing. And then here you are, I'm hired and I had a regular job during COVID and then went on the journey. We moved to Miami at one point. We launched a live show called the Best Business Show, where I built a studio. I directed that show for a year. We did the regular podcast, and then sort of we went our separate ways in 23. And I was helping people remotely do their podcast. I had a few clients. And then Anthony called me and said, hey, you want to do a studio here? So that's the fastest way I could tell that story without putting everyone to sleep. But it's just a journey of like finding my thing, because I did video, but like I wasn't like a movie guy. I wasn't a cinema guy. I wasn't like, I never found like my thing. I was like, what's my thing here? Like I like production, I like broadcasting, and like through just the magic of like time in the market and just society changes, like podcasting just sort of worked perfectly for what I do. It's like the production side. I'm still doing the basics of videos and lightings and microphones. Like it's still the basics I learned 15, 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. Same concept though. So it's really cool. And just also it's like a product market fit of like a lot of people in one podcast want to do them and have their own thing. And so it's also like from a financial and business standpoint, it's a lot better than my friends who are still in the industry. So it's like all these things kind of worked that now you go, oh, easy, figured it out. But it's like, oh, you got to go on the journey.
Where do you think podcasting is going over the next 5 to 10 years? Because 5, 10 years ago, people, I don't know, it barely existed.
Yeah, we're at the point now of maturity. So people say like, oh, everyone has a podcast. They're not wrong. But everyone has a band. Everyone makes movies. everyone writes. So like that's a little bit of a simplistic way of putting it. It's art. It's just a new art form. Mm-hmm. So you can always do art. I just think like the game has changed. Like where are your goals? So like there's always going to be someone who wants to be the next Joe Rogan, the next Lex Fridman, Chris Williamson, and says, hey, I'm going to go all the way to the top on this. Mm-hmm. No lack of athletes and assets, actually the first thing that comes to mind. So some people want to be like the biggest podcaster in the world. Fine. But then there's always these like other avenues where it goes down where it's like, oh, well, maybe I have a business. A good example is Jackie, who works in the studio with us. She has a business called Token Relations, which is in the crypto industry. She does a podcast called Talking Tokens. So not only does it help with her content, but it also leads into her business. Noah Lactus Athletes and Assets, it all feeds into the business. It's the people he meets. Those people end up being investor calls, ends up being like other marketing things, other ways he can expand his business. He meets athletes who he can help build their media companies. So it's all these things. So it's like you can define in different ways. Like someone can do a podcast and maybe they put $100,000 extra into their business that year because of like advertisers they sold or people they had that are available. So it's really just everyone can do it. Obviously, yes, I know everyone has a podcast. That's a joke, and it is true. Listen, there's a lot of fucking people talking out there, a lot of talking. But I think like it also just allows people just to do it and have fun. For some people, it's just like a way to communicate and have their friends in the pod and learn. And so you see where it goes in the next 5 to 10 years. We really don't know. So I think you always keep in the back of your mind, like if you're running a business, it's the same thing. Like it's working now, but like what's the world going to be like? And you try to anticipate the changes. Mm-hmm. So the point, I can't really anticipate what the change is going to be, but you're sort of always like, that sort of like fear that's omnipresent of like, it's all going to go away. Mm-hmm. Like, especially if you're a founder or an entrepreneur and like, you're just like, this is all going to go away. It's going to wake up tomorrow and they're going to figure out it's all a scam. And so I don't know, man. So you just try to keep with the changes. And I think like for me and for like a lot of us, it's like, I think we've been pretty good at like rolling with it. So that's what I continue to do.
Any guests over the years that were either really cool or different from what you expected, or everyone's just kind of a person?
Well, that's also true. I'm excited. I've worked in entertainment my whole life. I worked in production TV, like I said, music. You just learn they're all humans, right? They all want a fucking Starbucks coffee. They all want their regular orders. Like they're basic people. They're all insecure. They're all mentally ill. Like everyone's fucking crazy, right? Yeah. So like they all have their problems. My fun one I get to tell everyone, because I got to meet Andrew Tate in like 2020 before he got big. Mm-hmm. And like it was one of the first podcasts I did with Anthony in Miami. And like I didn't have no idea who this guy was. And he just started spewing. And I was like, what the fuck did I just walk into? And then like we didn't even put out that podcast out because it was like too wild at the time. We put out a year later when like things have changed and all of a sudden like people were a little more open to like COVID theories and like anti wearing a mask and like all this and like and so like the market came to him. And then like all of a sudden like my niece and nephews are like 10 years old and like they know who Tate was. He was so monumental. I was like, I met him, right? He's like what? Like so so it's I think also the second one I could say is like the first time we did an interview with Michael Saylor or David Sachs, it's like, oh, that's a billionaire. Mm-hmm. Fuck. Like you know what I mean? Like that's like shit. Like that's a billionaire that walks in. Like that's a different level of like a person you meet. And by the way, same person, they have security with them because they have to, and they're just regular people. But there's a thing when you meet a billionaire, you go, wow, you're a different level. So those two stand out. And again, most of them are just kind of people. It's always fun to see people off the camera, like when they walk in the studio and they see their normal people, they have their people with them. The thing I found the most, the people who are the assholes online or the ones that are most hated online are the nicest in person and vice versa. I remember when the first big interviews I did when I was in TV, I'm going to age myself and all of us a little bit, but Cyndi Lauper, a famous 80s singer, Girls Just Want to Have Fun. She's like the Girls Just Want to Have Fun person. Fucking awful. Like terrible person. Like I was like, oh my God. Like rude, yelling. By the way, I met Andrew Tate. He was really fucking nice. Like I don't know, like there's a whole other conversation that sort of delves after that. But like the people who are the assholes to the public are the nicest people I met. Jake Paul was super nice, right? Michael Saylor, David Sachs, like they're all nice. No one was mean to me. Yeah. I've been treated much more like shit by like producers of like TV shows or like people who thought they were famous than actual like the people who are famous online. So it always goes to show you never know.
You never know.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for kind of giving us some insight and hanging out. And thanks for having us here.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for coming by anytime.